Hey everyone, One Dragon here. Today I wanted to share 3 annoying bugs that I ran into when playing after patch 1.6. I genuinely hope these issues get hotfixed as soon as possible, but I thought I'd let people know anyway so you don't waste time like I have. As always, I'm just testing these by myself, so it's a low sample size. Let me know if you find anything different in the comments. In patch 1.6, they introduced 6 firearms and 5 melee weapons. I was going around visiting every store to collect all the weapons to run some tests on them when I was told by a friend that they found 2 iconic knives, the Blue Fang and the Headhunter, at melee stores. Supposedly, the Blue Fang is at the melee store in Pacifica, and the Headhunter should have been at the store in the Badlands. However, they were not there when I had checked.
Oi.
I searched the other knife stores just in case that it was at a random location and skipped about a month's worth of time, but still they did not appear. Then I remembered in previous versions of the game there was a crafting spec bug where if you had visited the clothing store beforehand, the crafting specs would not appear upon subsequent visits. Of course, the character that I had planned to test these knives on has a knife throwing build, and I had visited these stores in prior patches. So I loaded up a save that has yet to visit the 2 knife
wondering what
stores,
you've got on
and
hand.
the 2 iconic knives were present.
Selling anything interesting?
In other words, if you had visited these stores before patch 1.6, then these knives may not be there. And if you want to collect these knives right now, then you'll have to load up a save of a character that has not visited these stores previously. As far as I'm aware, this only impacts the 2 iconic knives found at those stores and doesn't impact the other weapons. A big part of the patch is the transmog or wardrobe system, which allows you to change the appearance of your outfits without changing the armor stats. I had hoped that they would also make sure that the armor stats were working then, right? Well, not so much. In patch 1.5, they introduced a lot of bonus stats that came along with clothing. I personally eyed 3 offensive stats. The Showtime mod equivalent, which provides bonus damage against enemies of moderate or high threat level, the plus 4% to crit damage, and the quick hack cooldown reduction in the form of 1 new clothing mod known as the Hackslinger mod, and a bonus stat that replaces clothing mod slots. In earlier versions of the game, there were lots of bugs related to clothing, clothing mods, and perks. For some stats, you could do a quick check to see if they were functional by checking the weapon cards or the stats page. If the bonus stats did not appear on either of them, then in general, it also wasn't working. Now, if we use the Showtime stat as an example, I have 4 pieces of clothing that have plus 9% and the headpiece which adds another 20% for a total of 56% bonus damage. This correctly appears on the character's stat page. However, when we look at crit damage, it doesn't appear on either the stats page or an equipped weapon. On my weapon, I have 74% crit damage just in case it applies to the weapon for some reason, and on the stats page, I have 75% crit damage. When I equip these pants, it should add the 4% crit damage to the stats page, but it doesn't. And it also doesn't apply to the weapon. I also checked in combat just in case it only triggered while fighting, but I only received the stats from combat perks and not the additional 4%. This could just be not appearing on the stats and actually functioning on damage, but 4% extra damage is annoying to test with all the other variables that weapons already have. One that is simpler to test, however, is the quick hack cooldown reduction. Now, cooldown reduction does not have space on the stats page, and it doesn't change the quick hack cards when you check the cyberware. So, I'm testing a legendary system reset quick hack with a long base cooldown of 120 seconds or 2 minutes. With the legendary Tetratronic Rippler Mark IV, it provides a 45% quick hack cooldown reduction, so the cooldown should be 66 seconds after hacking with it. I removed the clothing before I did this test and it worked fine. Just in case you don't use quick hacks, you can see the quick hack cooldown at the top left corner next to the health bar. Now, I've applied a total of 21% additional cooldown reduction by putting 3 pieces of clothing. As you can see, this had no effect on the cooldown of the quick hack. I then swapped out my cyber deck to a rare version that has no cooldown reduction, just in case there was some sort of quick hack cooldown cap, but still the clothing stats had no effect. Clearly, there are some issues with clothing stats that have existed since patch 1.5. I'd hoped that these would get fixed alongside the wardrobe update, but unfortunately they haven't been fixed yet. The next bug I encountered is a little bit scarier because I noticed it a bit late. So since they introduced the wardrobe or transmog system, it's only natural that you'd want to free up some inventory space by selling or salvaging any duplicates or low stats clothing, right? I opted to sell some of the clothing since crafting materials are very affordable now after all the updates. However, after already selling a bunch of clothing, I noticed that some clothing had different stats in the merchant tab compared to my inventory. For example, this particular piece of clothing had quick hack cooldown reduction on it, so I wanted to keep it for when they fix the stat. However, in the merchant tab, the clothing piece is not showing the correct stats and is missing the quick hack cooldown reduction. In other words, be careful when clearing out your inventory because you may accidentally sell clothes with stat bonuses that you want to keep. Alternatively, you can just salvage all the clothing duplicates or low stats to avoid opening the merchant tab in the first place, but keep in mind there's a bunch of new weapons to buy, so you'll need money for that as well. So as stated at the start of the video, hopefully these issues will be hotfixed soon. I just thought I'd make a quick video so that people don't waste time on these issues like I have. I'm planning on doing some in-depth tests on the new weapons as well as discussing the wardrobe system and other changes in future videos. I've already found a bunch of undocumented changes. One particular one is an overhaul to the clothing store and their inventory, but more in future, so be sure to subscribe. Catch you next time, Chooms.